Welcome to the Dog Trainers Podcast,
a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Hey everybody, welcome back and thank you so much for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast. Mariano Alvarez here with Brent Labrada and this is our first time having three very special guests on. So, we are going to make this short and sweet. If you listen to our previous episode on behavioral euthanasia with Michael Ellis and Denise Fenzi, you know that was one of our most informative, one of our most interesting episodes. We know it's a hot topic, so much so that we decided to do it again with a new group of friends. So say hello to Vinnie Somma, Samantha Johnson John Gotta. You can find them at Say It Once Dog Training for Vinnie, PackLife_LA for Samantha, and Gotta Train, all one word, for John Gotta. I just wanted to make that short and sweet because I know this is going to be a jam-packed episode. So with that, over to you, Brent.
What's up, everybody? It's Brent with the Dog Trainers Podcast. And again, we want to welcome three beautiful faces that are not unfamiliar with this podcast. You guys have heard them before in a couple other episodes, and we're so happy that they came back to join us. If you guys listened to the Michael Ellis and Denise Fenzi episode, I talked to you guys about a story where I was in Colorado with a bunch of friends. And, you sit down at a table with people who were at that time were acquaintances. And it was really nice to sit down. And one thing that I realized is you develop trust for people faster when you realize they have the same heart and you guys believe in the same things and you guys have the same morals, the same ethics, and you guys have the same passion for dog training. And I remember sitting down, chomping on my burger, hearing these people have a conversation. And literally, this is where our whole idea to do an episode on behavioral euthanasia started. So we're so blessed to have these people back. Hopefully we can share that story and share the stories that actually incited this conversation in the first place. So want to welcome Samantha, Vinnie, and John Gotta. Let's get started.
Sweet.
Let's do it.
So let's do it like this, you guys. Can we just kind of go in easy sort of order? So if we can start with Vinnie, would you maybe tell us a little bit about a story, if you don't, if you're open to it, of when you've had to deal with behavioral euthanasia? It could be yourself, could be a client, could be someone you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for putting me on the spot. So, I want to
tell us all about
That's
it.
where you do the best, on the spot.
Yeah. So I want to talk about not just a one particular story, but, a story of growth just in general as a dog trainer, because when I was a young dog trainer, I had it ingrained in my brain that I could save every single dog. Yeah. I had it ingrained in my brain that I could train anything out of any dog, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, my ego is there where I'm still like, no, I can fucking fix this. But am I allowed to swear in this or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're allowed to do whatever you want.
John's
But, you have to look at it like, hey, at some point, we're talking about a human's life. Like, at what point do we say a dog's life is not worth a human's life? Mm-hmm. And it's much easier to say now. I tell stories to my trainers when I first started, 10 years ago, how just I was fucking dumb. Like I was stupid. I don't know how I didn't get bit more because I'm so dumb. You know what I mean?
That
like I'm talking about
skill set.
Well, I'm talking about walking into a crate with a killer. You know what I mean? Like going into the crate with a Great Dane killer. And you're just like, are you fucking stupid? You know what I mean? But once again, that is the benefit of having mentors, because they can tell you you're being a moron and the proper way to approach dog training. And just, I had a seminar in Columbus this past weekend, and there was 15 dog trainers there. And they've only been training for a couple years. But they all know so much more than I did 5, 6, 7 years into dog training. So it feels like because of places like the Dog Trainers Podcast, people are learning faster and quicker, which is great because they don't have to make the same mistakes that we did. But, as a dog trainer, you have to understand two things. One, you cannot save every dog. It's not possible. There are some dogs that are, unfortunately, whether they're too far gone or just they are not wired the way that the golden retriever down the street is, and it's really hard. I have a few interesting stories that I'll get to later today, but I just want to focus more on, as a dog trainer, guys, you need to understand you're not going to be able to fix everything.
Yep.
I also think that when you first start off, you have this tiny sample size, right? And that sample size, you think that you're better than you are. Do you get what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
you have like 20 dogs that are aggressive, and you're doing wonders with those 20 dogs. But just because you do good with those 20 does not mean the next 20 are going to be as easy.
Yeah, you know what, John? It's amazing because when you do work with a lot of different personalities, a lot of different dogs in general, your skill set it expands, right? And you start to learn how certain dogs are going to tick. And you can look at a dog, like I can look at a dog and I know exactly how I'm going to train that dog.
Yeah.
Like I know exactly what I'm going to do. As soon as I feel his energy, as soon as I see that dog, I know what I'm going to do. But, this is the importance of a lot of hands-on practice and a lot of hands-on work, but not with one dog, but with a wide array of dogs. I know I'm going off topic, but this is fucking important, Brent, because, I see this trend getting pushed at it's not important to train a lot of these dogs, blah, 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 blah. That's bullshit, right? Like if you want to master the craft of dog training, you have to see every single dog and every single behavior. It's not just about training one dog to perfection. That doesn't do it for me.
Sorry, can you explain what you mean?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Can you explain what you mean? So you're talking about it's more important to train several dogs than one to perfection. What does that mean? Are there people out there who think that it's better to train one dog?
Yeah. I get tagged or sent shit of what do you think about this? Because it may have something to do with me training a lot of dogs and or whoever training a lot of dogs. But I assume I assume they know who I'm talking about.
Sorry, I'm just for people who don't know what you're. Don't know what you're referring to. So are you saying that there are people who send you content or send you responses on your content that say, because you train lots of dogs?
No.
Yeah, what he's saying is it's just different training a bunch of dogs compared to training one sport dog.
I see, like lifers, like people who raise and train their dog from puppyhood.
I'm sorry, if you have a genetically superior dog and you can do fancy obedience, that's what they were made for, right?
Exactly. It's nothing like training this backyard dog, who's been living with a 65-year-old woman that does not have the physical capabilities of somebody, right? And it's not the same. Right, but when you work with people, not just dogs, but when you work with fucking people from every walk of life, you see that you have to learn how to train dogs differently based off that person, based off that dog's personality. I don't even know where we're going, right?
Unless they only want to train that, then that's fine. I think if someone only wants to do sports or if someone only wants to do that, that's fine, but they can't have an opinion on the old lady walking her dog down the street. How
about this, you guys? I do want to hear your story, Samantha, but I have that down as a topic for later. Sport trainers versus pet dog trainers.
Okay.
As you guys talk, by the way, and you bring up things, I'm writing them down, so I'll make sure we give us time to go over it.
Yeah, great. I mean, when I met up with you guys in Colorado for lunch, Moose had bit Lily that day, and it was the only time that Moose had come at my own dogs. And I sat down and I hadn't even said anything. I just said, I was telling them about Moose's personality, his rehab story with me, which I can get into a little bit depending if we want to hear it. And I said, he got back from another trainer. I sprained my ankle really bad and I needed just a break from this dog that I had been rehabbing for a long time.
Would you mind telling people who Moose is exactly in more
Yeah,
more
so
detail?
Moose was a 100-pound German Shepherd that came to me from a client. I took him in. I met him at 10 months old and he was having really intense behavior. I did a board and train with him, and there's been 2 board and trains that when I take the dog home, I've gotten back in my car and I've bawled afterwards, and he was one of them. I just got back in my car and I cried because I just knew it wasn't a good fit. And if I was the trainer I am today, I would say, you're not getting this dog back. I'm sorry, it's not a good fit for you. Out of pure love. But I wasn't that trainer back then. And got back in my car and I just cried because I'd fallen so much in love with him. And I got a call about, a year or so later. She was leaving. She had a visa, but his reactivity was so intense. He would come back at her. And I mean, I used him once. I used my dad once, was in town. My dad was 5 houses down and this dog was losing his shit with that's how big of a distance you needed before, and before, he was just really intense. And so when she got him, by the way, it was a backyard breeder from Craigslist, and something dropped. Keys dropped, something dropped. And he went after it at 10 weeks old, and she thought it was cute, and she brought him home and she put him in bed with her and she cuddled him, a German Shepherd. So I will never know, if I would have gotten him at 10 weeks old, could I have changed this behavior? Could I have redirected it? Or would he have been a maintenance case even for me as a trainer?
I don't think so.
A maintenance case? You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think that environment dictates a lot. Genetics play a huge role, but I think someone like you or me or anybody sitting on this podcast could totally turn that dog's life around if we can get to them young.
Yeah. So, and at that point, I had this I have two different rehab stories. One is my pet Lily, who got me into dog training, who was probably used for fighting based on the condition she came in. And she bit me at least 6 times in our first years together. And she would attack her own reflection in the mirror, but she's what's got me into Caesar's world. I mean, she taught me everything, and I can use her for training. She's amazing. It doesn't mean that she's a bulletproof dog. She's not. I have to watch her, but it is very easy to redirect her if she's starting to be a bitch. But she's not bulletproof, but I can still take her places off leash. And then, so I thought that was all rehab cases. And then I had Moose. So I have completely different stories for my own personal dogs, not even working with clients, of one I could rehab and one I could not. And so Moose came back and he was really intense. He would redirect. I worked him as my own personal dog because I could not think of adopting him out for over 2 years, almost 3. And anytime I sent him to another trainer, he would bite. Really good trainers. Because one, I was gone for Christmas and he bit because people underestimated him. And I could take him to workshops. I could do these things because I was constantly working him the entire time. I was constantly on. There was not a moment of not being on if this dog was in my hand. But every time he did damage, it was quick and fast, and he did a lot of damage in a short amount of time. And so I sprained my ankle. There was a lot of life changes happening for me. I sent him to a trainer friend I made in Denver. I got a call the second day, and I just knew the phone was ringing. I was like, Moose bit again. And I was like, God fucking damn it. And you know what? It was overplaying. It was like Moose was so smart that he clocked it. The guy didn't correct him afterwards or anything. And it was like he clocked what he did, and he did the exact same thing to Lily the day he got back. And it was something he had never done before. And I was in the shower that day, and I remember being like, what's my until then? Like, what's my no? Like, he just went after Lily, and she was tail tucked trying to run away from him, and he kept going after her. And I was like frozen for a second because I'm a human being. And then I yelled and like interrupted, but it was like he went to his place and was just looking at me like nothing happened. I was like, what the fuck? Like, and then that day I went to lunch with you guys and I told the story, and I remember it clear as day. Vinny looked at me and he goes, you have to put that dog down. And I remember, and I hadn't even brought up behavioral euthanasia, although I was dreaming that this dog would get cancer. I was dreaming of it. I was like, God, please just have him have cancer or something, like, so I wouldn't feel bad. Like, and I just remember Vinny saying that to me, and it was like a huge relief came off me. Like, I didn't feel like a failure. I didn't feel bad. And then John shared his story, and then we started talking about it, and I did it, I think, I don't know, 3 weeks later, and I have never once regretted my decision. I had a very scary incident that happened with Moose after this when I was still kind of debating what would happen. I called tons of people, and that's Brian Agnew, who's one of my friends and mentors. He was like, what's worst case scenario? What if the door was left open? And what if Olivia left the door open? And I was like, he'd kill a dog and probably hurt some people. And he goes, yeah. And I was like, I feel like I'm starting to get jumpy. Like, I've worked with hard dogs. I started at Caesar's. Like, I've worked with hard dogs. And I was like, I'm jumping now. I hear a noise and I jump. And he's like, yeah, you're walking with a sniper down the road. Like, you're walking. You have to be on all the time. And I had this really scary incident where Olivia and I were traveling in my conversion van with all 3 of my dogs, and we parked at an Olive Garden, and there's no dogs around. It was like commercial. It was a business. And Lily and Popcorn were on leash, Moose was, but it was a fucking flexi lead, which I would never do again. But it was because I thought no one was around. So I just wanted him off leash, although his recall and everything was perfect. It was just like safety measure. And they had had their potty break. I put them back in the car, and Olivia has a seat that I have to fold up. I was folding it up, and all of a sudden a dog was walking off leash with its owner and ran about a block up from its owner and was charged our van and was barking. And Moose ran out of the van, and I had to plant my feet and like hold on to the flexy part of the leash.
The cable.
It dug into my fingers. It was gnarly, like super deep. It took months to heal. And all I could do was plant my feet and hope to God that like that Moose would not reach this dog. And thankfully the dog was like not real, and it's barking, and it stopped about 5 feet, 10 feet away from Moose, but still barking. Lily and Popcorn, Lily's my pit, Popcorn's my chihuahua, ran out of the van and chased this dog off. And when I saw them chase the dog off, I go, thank fucking God, because I know that Lily won't bite anymore. Like, she's come so far. The part that for me though, that was the scariest was Olivia, who was 6 at the time, is now 7, my daughter, was trying to get, she's never seen Moose like this before. And she thinks she's the most powerful being in the world, which is amazing. I'm proud of myself for that. But what's scary is she has no limitations in what she thinks she can do. And so she was literally trying to get around me to go grab Moose to help me.
She's like, I got it, Mom.
And I was blocking her with my body as I'm holding this 100-pound dog back. I'm blocking her with my body, and afterwards, I brought him inside, and I shut the doors. I called Lily and Popcorn back. I shut the doors, and I just sat there and cried, and my hands were like in so much pain. And I knew if Olivia would have gotten past me and touched him, he would have redirected at her, and he would have mauled her, and her feelings towards dogs would have never been the same. And I was like, what? I was like, that's it. Like, that was my final thing. And thank God nothing happened, but my only regret is that I didn't do it sooner, honestly. But for me personally, I don't think that I would have been okay with myself. This is just me personally as a perfectionist, as like a really hard hustler. If I hadn't tried every fucking method, which I did, and if I hadn't had those 2 scary moments, I would have kept thinking, what if? He's come so far in all this other way. What if I could do this? What if I could do this? What if, like, I think I needed those 2 moments to be like, I'm never putting my daughter's safety in like, I'm never putting her safety at
Can I ask you a what if?
Yeah.
Did you say it was Vinnie who recommended that this dog get euthanized?
He was like, I mean, it was, but he just said it so nonchalantly at lunch. Like, I don't know if nonchalantly is the right word, but he was just like, it was so matter of fact.
Well,
Can I tell you
nonchalant.
why?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mariana, you can go. You can ask first, but
Well, I was just going to say nonchalant isn't a bad thing, but my what if was going to be, what if he never brought that up to you?
I would have, like, when I was calling all my, because then John and I started it started the conversation, and then John told me his story, which he'll share in a minute. And then when I was calling people, and that's my friend. So when I got to California, I was going to send him to another board and train, because I just wanted to break from this fucking dog. And it was going to be with my friend Jason from Canine Breakthrough, who's a Positive Change alumni. And I called him, and he was like, what's your goal? Like, what do you want me to do with this dog? And I was like, I mean, I'm missing something. There's something I'm missing. There's something I'm not doing right that he could be better. And he was like, Samantha, you've done it all. Like, I watched you done it all. I've watched over the years. Like, there's nothing I could do differently. He's like, let's think about the quality of life of this dog. So every time I called a friend and a mentor to talk through it, and I think what had me hesitant for so long is I felt like a failure. I felt like a huge failure. And I didn't want to fail this dog I love so much. And I think I didn't show how hard he was all the time on Instagram, because I didn't want people to think I was a bad trainer. There was a lot of ego that went into it. Why haven't I fixed this dog yet? Why haven't I fixed this dog yet? And now I realize so deeply I did an amazing job with this dog, and there's nothing more I could have done. And the moment that what was so interesting, sorry, I feel like I'm talking really far, a long time.
No, it's perfect.
To change.
Keep going.
But what for me was so interesting is when I euthanized him. When I euthanized my dog Baloo, who was my soul dog, my dogs mourned. Like, some people say dogs don't mourn. My dogs mourned for like 2 days. They laid around the house. They like sniffed his body. They followed his body to the truck. Popcorn kept jumping up. I had to keep grabbing Popcorn. Popcorn was like ready to drive away. When I put Moose to sleep, I brought Lily in afterwards, so she wanted to be protective. They were both so busy comforting his old owner who was there. And they kind of smelled, and they're like, yeah, let's move on. Like, they were like, yeah, let's move on with our life. And the moment he died, I felt this presence of, oh my God, he's breathing normal. Like, I really felt it. Like, and whether people are into this or not, and I saw Lily looking at the corner, and I was like, holy shit, he is normal. And I imagined my old dog Blue greeting him wherever they are, spirits hanging out with me, whether that's true or not. It made me feel good. But I felt the sense of like, holy shit, he's not anxious anymore. And like, that to me, I was like, my only regret is that I didn't do it sooner. Of course, there's moments I miss him. I loved that dog. my life is so much easier and my pack is so much happier. Like Lily and Popcorn just boomed after that.
Yeah.
So can I want to transition over to John's story as well. And I think that I have a question for you, but I think that this ties in John perfectly, and I'll explain why. Okay. So let me ask the question first, and I'll explain my thoughts here. Does us not putting these more difficult dogs, or I wrote it down as imperfections, but that's not exactly what I mean, but you guys get my point here. Does us not showing stuff like that in training do other trainers a disservice? And my rationale for that is, if you would have done that, maybe it would have been less out of the blue for us to have a conversation about behavioral euthanasia. Maybe somebody who's struggling with their own moose would have made this decision sooner, because Vinnie can only talk to a few people at a time, and so he gave you this advice, and he got the ball rolling. But maybe we have more of an obligation to do the same. And the reason why I feel like this transitions us into John is John has a certain confidence that I don't have, that it sounds like most of us don't have, that he'll put things out. You know what I mean? And I really do mean that as a positive. Like John he's comfortable putting content out, even if it doesn't go super smooth, or at least from the from what other people think and whatever the case. But honestly, that might end up being kind of a superpower, So with that, I guess, what are your thoughts on that? Does hiding imperfection kind of hurt dog training?
I think 100%. And I think it's mixed, because I didn't want to talk about it, because I didn't want people who don't fucking walk their dog, who don't do any training, to think that Moose and their dog are the same. And I feel this. So our dogs are not the same. And I'm not saying you need to put in 3 years of work the way that I did and travel to Maine to go. I'm not saying that people need to do that, but if you're not fulfilling your dog, if you haven't even tried crate, if you haven't tried this, we're not the same. And I think that was my nervousness to share it, because I don't want people to jump to that. But then there are dogs that I work with that are just coming after their owner, coming after me in a muzzle time and time again. And I'm like, what the fuck are we doing with this dog?
Yeah. Can I tell you something real quick? Brent, last time that we talked, we both talked about this ability to feel what other people feel as soon as you get into the same room. Yeah. Right? I looked at Sam, and it took me 4 or 5 seconds to understand how stressed that you were. Right? And at what point is your health, your mental health, your stress level, and everything that comes along with that, at what point is that fair to yourself?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't know the dog, but I know you, and I know that you would do everything in your power. But I also know that at some point, you're going to fucking hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, doesn't matter. You're going to hurt yourself, and then, and that's just it's not fair to a human.
And a scary add-on to that is it's not fair to future dogs too. How many dog trainers do you guys know who took one good bite and then are done?
Yeah.
They can't use their hand anymore because they got the fucking tendon.
Yeah. I mean, I think what people forget is that in America, our expectations with our dogs are so low. And having a dog should be easy. And I'm not saying getting to the work, training's not hard. Training can be hard. Having a difficult dog is hard. Because of Moose being gone, I adopted the most amazing Mastiff Cane Corso in the fucking world. I love this dog. He brings so much ease to my life and safety. I feel so safe with him. And it's just a reminder for me of oh yeah, life can be this easy. He came with some separation anxiety. I have to watch him a little bit if a guy comes off, surprises us, but it's simple. It's easy. It's a simple, hey, Luca, come here. The training I put in, it's already there. It doesn't have to be years work of it. You don't need to deal with your dog coming after you. It's not normal.
I think you hit it on the nose at the very beginning. The standard is so low, and it starts with dog trainers, right? We're all skipping through the relationship aspect of dog training. We're all skipping through the foundation of creating a clear line of communication. I think that if we all made that something very, very important to us, that we could actually make a dent in what's happening to the pet world.
Well, let's dive right in, John. Let's hear your story, man.
Oh, Bob, you guys want to go from the beginning? It's a long story.
Whatever you think is important to this, you go for it, man. This is your time.
All right, so when I started off, I couldn't find a mentor. So
Come on, Sam. What the fuck? Are you fucking kidding me, Sam?
I'm sorry, John.
What?
Brent, can you turn John
John
up?
Go,
just a touch?
John Go, I love you so much, and I'm ready to listen to you. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know what happened. What have I?
Nothing. Her phone went off.
My phone went off.
So when I first started off, I couldn't find anyone. So I started volunteering, right? And I took on the dogs that no one else would take on.
Talk in the
And I
microphone.
met
more.
Bob.
Closer to the mic, bro.
Talk closer to the microphone.
I'm literally right there.
There you go.
Now
Right
you're
there.
better.
Okay. So when I started volunteering, I went to go deal with the hard dogs. And there was this dog at the AZ Mastiff Rescue named Handsome Bob.
What
Sam,
in the world?
Sam, you got to be fucking kidding me.
Someone just tried to FaceTime me. I'm so sorry.
All right. I'm just gonna
Poor
skip it.
guy.
So-
You know, I mean, it's his third attempt.
This is for editing. Stop it.
I don't even know where
It's
you
a
guys
really
went.
important story, Sam.
I know. Now I can't find you.
Do you guys want me
Oh, there you are.
Should I just
Okay.
skip?
I'm so sorry.
Part out and just act like
Do not edit this out. I need people to see. You know, Sam's watching reels. You know what I mean? She's on TikTok. You know what I mean? She's done
That wasn't
talking.
me. That was someone FaceTiming me. Okay,
Okay, John.
John, I'm here.
So that's the second one. Strike two, guys. Strike two.
after this he's out.
Yeah, seriously.
Don't you
Fair
say
enough.
guys?
I know. It's
Really, just Sam. It's ladies.
All right. So basically, I went to a rescue and I helped fucked up dogs, right? And there was this special dog that I met that everyone was afraid to go into his crate. And they said, don't go in there. Don't go in there. But I went in anyway because that's just, you know. I go in there and this dog just loves on me. I couldn't believe that they were afraid of this dog. I'd pull him out. He would heel with me. He would do all this fun stuff. And no one would take him. He'd been adopted out like 8 times, returned the very same day. They told me they didn't know why, right? And I bring this dog. I adopt the dog. And the first day that he's with me, I put his food down, and he lights me up. So you can kind of see the scar here.
Whoa.
Yeah. I had to get my lips sewed back together. But I remember when he bit me, I woke up, and he was eating, and I thought to myself, holy crap. If he wanted to hurt me, he would have fucking killed me, right? And it was this like giant epiphany where I realized that these aggressive dogs are just misunderstood, right? And so it went on. I mean, I have scars all down my arms from this dog. He's given me so many stitches, right? But he was a monster. I tried everything and some. So like the normal techniques did not work. So I actually started marking his aggressive behavior. Right, and I would tell him, be mean, and he would come out growling, all vicious, right? And then I conditioned a relax command where his chin would hit the ground, right? And so I didn't know it back then, but I was drive channeling between relax and be mean, right? So his aggression into a calm state, aggression into a calm state. So through that conditioning, it gave me this like false sense of control, right? And I always had to have extra treats in my pocket, and if I didn't like feed him fast enough, he was going to let me know, right? He's not a dog that you can correct. If he's 140 pounds, you try to correct this dog, you're going to get hurt, like bad. Like he's not taking punishment from a human. Like he learned long ago that he's a big boy. And basically this dog took over my life. Like it was so bad. I had him in heavy duty crate, surrounded by a corral, door locked, like barriers between hallways, just in case, right? And I could tell you a story. I was at Vinnie's house, and the person watching my dog, and you can ask Vinnie, the person watching my dog didn't shut his crate all the way. She comes back, and Bob is sitting in the living room like he owned the spot. And she's like, hey, I'm going to go in. And I'm like, no. And you can ask Vinnie, I was freaking, because this is a situation where he's going to kill somebody. It's bad, right? And Vinnie's like, calm down, there's nothing you can do. I had to call one of my buddies to go buy hamburgers, jump over the fence, open the sliding glass door, throw a hamburger out, right? So that they could get in to set up a crate to get him back into, right? This is a dog that helped me rehabilitate so many dogs, but it was getting to the point where he was causing such a nightmare in my home, right? Like it was soul crushing, this dog. And basically what happened is I had to squish him. Like he was a 10 and I crushed him into something that he wasn't. And I remember there were like 6 months. I was talking to Denise Fenzi, like, dude, what do I do? Like, I don't know what to do. And she's like, she would tell me that no matter what I decided, it's the right decision, but quality of life. That's what she kept preaching to me. Quality of life, quality of life, quality of life. And I'm going to skip forward a little bit. It's like 6 months of this dog crying every morning. And it was to the point where I would take him out to go potty, train him, put him back in his crate to go work other dogs, and he would just scream the whole time. It was getting like, it was causing me like so much frustration. I couldn't breathe. Like, it was the worst feeling ever. And basically, I remember the 4 days before I euthanized him, he was crying, and I was pissed. This is a gladiator. This is not some soft pet foo-foo dog. Like, he was a gangster, right? And I remember the day he was crying. I had enough, and I was just like, dude, just shut the fuck up. I just screamed at him, like, and it wasn't a nice scream. I was pissed, right? And he flinched, and his head went down, and I thought to myself, oh my God, dude, I destroyed you. It was like that moment I realized that this amazing creature that was God's gift to the world, right? I crushed him, and he was now a shadow of what he should have been, a shadow, and a scrawny shadow at that. And I remember I didn't cry at first. I called the vet that moment, and I made the appointment 3 days later. I made sure the vet was willing to do it that day, but I wanted to give Bob a couple good days, right? So I bought him hamburger, and he ate P.F. Chang's and McDonald's and everything under the sun for 3 days. I locked all my other dogs up and let him do whatever he wanted. And he let me give him affection, and he was the type of dog where you can give affection for a second, but then he'd bite you. Right? Not a dog you could put a collar on and take it off when you want. Just, he's a liability. And the day of, we went for our walk, and I decided to walk him to the vet because it's just not a safe dog to have in the car with you, right? He's not going in a crate if he doesn't want to get in one. So I'm walking to the vet's office, and of course we're walking across the street, and this mother effer comes after me. I thought we were going to be good. It was going to be a good sail off. He comes after me. I dropped the leash, and someone in Phoenix saw me running from this dog, like in the middle of the road, dude. I dropped that leash, dude, and I ran, and he's rah, 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 rah. So someone watched this like go down, and I'm afraid he's gonna like hurt somebody or get hit by a car.
He knew.
Like it's, but he lets me get the leash. We get him to the vet's office, and I'm gonna leave out some of the details there, but it was not pleasant at all. And he fought the whole way. I mean, it was not a peaceful thing. He was fighting the whole time, and I told that motherfucker, you keep fighting, you motherfucker. You keep fighting, you bastard. Ooh, like, you get it. Like, and he growled until the very end. He growled, and I can say that
Brent, hug your friend.
That's okay. I don't want to hug right now. So when I got home, it was everything in my house changed for the better. It's like the moment he was gone, like my dogs weren't playing anymore. Like when Bob was there was no playing. There was no relaxing. Everything was on so much edge that like the other dogs in my home were suffering, and I didn't even realize it until Bob was gone, and I started to see 1, 2, and Bummer playing again, and I remember thinking, oh my God, how terrible! I feel so much better, and I killed a dog that I loved, right? And I should have put him down, like you said, years ago, but I felt it wasn't about my skill set or anything like that. I felt that Bob was me, if that makes sense. I felt that when he bit me that first time, I realized that he was misunderstood. And I know what it feels like to be misunderstood. Like, to the fullest, right? I used to be a dope fiend, and to try to explain that to someone, they just don't understand, right? Like people just don't understand. And when I felt like he was me. So when I put him down, it felt like I killed myself, like a part of myself, and it felt absolutely horrific. It probably took me 4 months to get right. I mean, it was very hard, very hard. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you this: I will never crush a dog like that ever again. I would rather euthanize a dog. I will never put a dog through that kind of lifestyle. Not in Arizona where they can't go outside for 4 months a year. Not if it's your happy-go-lucky Labrador. I will never crush a dog ever again. Like, if the dog is not meant for this world, if it was a relic from another time, that dog deserves to leave this world in peace and not crushed into a fucking pancake like I did to Bob. And it wasn't through punishment. It was psychological warfare that me and Bob had. It wasn't, it was not pretty. Like, it was, I have videos of this dog lighting me up, right? But I will say that the big thing, I thought I could save them all too. I thought I could do it all, right? There's no dog that I can't fix. And that's what I used to think. And now I know that it's not just the dog, it's the person. It's the pet client, right? Are they able?
The family in the house.
Yes.
The other dogs are, John, like, are we, sometimes I'm at a house and I'm like, your two other dogs are not living. Like, just like how you talked about it. Mm-hmm. And, it's, and I do want to bring up a point because the only problem with this is a really important conversation, right? This is a very, very important conversation. But my one problem that I've always had with any conversation like this is, I don't want people to pull the trigger so soon.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want, I heard this. So, this one behavior problem that I'm having, even though that I've been doing everything wrong, right? It's like, that's not what we're talking about here, right? And the good news is that your base listeners or your base following is probably dog trainers. So, this isn't, I hope.
Yeah. Hopefully that message does not come across right that way. And and thanks for bringing that point up, because this is, we should try everything within our power to help the dogs as much as possible. And
I have a counter to that, because I agree. That's like when I was talking earlier, I was so hesitant to talk about Moose because I didn't want people to think that we were the same. We're not the same.
Yeah.
That being said, there are plenty of dogs who aren't crate trained, who leash skills suck, who aren't getting the exercise or fulfillment that they deserved, and they don't fucking bite, or they don't and the reality is that there are millions of dogs that we euthanize in America every year. And I have 2 fosters right now, again, split. One, most happy-go-lucky dog I've ever met in my life. Loves people, loves dogs. It was returned to the shelter twice for jumping. That is stupid. That is lazy humans. And fine, I'll find him a better owner for you. I used him for my workshop this weekend. He was amazing. Like, dogs that want to lunge and are lunging. And I'm like, let's see what their intention is. Let's throw a muzzle on. Pull Jerry out here. Like, Jerry will get any dog to play with him. He's amazing. So that's one. There are so many dogs at the shelter just like Jerry. Why aren't we putting our efforts into pulling those dogs? These rescues wait until these dogs have been at the shelter for a really long time so that they can raise tons of funds, and then they pull these behavioral cases because they're getting all these pledges and all this money, and it's bullshit. If the dog has bit at the shelter, it's shown you that it has intention to bite, and there are 5 other dogs at the shelter that have no intention to bite. Go pull those.
I think the same could be said for pregnant dogs. Like, I really believe that if we really care about dogs, like the rescue world, like save the dog, then why are we allowing more puppies to be born? That makes no sense to me. It's a situation where if it was really about the dogs, I think that we would abort those puppies and give the dogs that you're talking about a chance. Because how many of those puppies end up right back in the same situation that the dogs that are dying for them?
I think more because I get what you're saying, John. We're not going to, I feel like
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far.
That's such a harder topic that we're not going to convince people. Really, what it comes down to is, I think, is really trying to get rescues. One, convince people that it is not good breeders that are causing millions of dogs to get euthanized. We have to stop this idea that good breeders are what's causing millions of dogs to get euthanized. Next, we have to start educating rescues to pull the happy-go-lucky, easy dogs that are at the shelter because they're jumping. Oh my gosh, pull those. It's so easy to fix. Like, and then also, there's so many rescues and so many dog trainers too that are like, people are bullshit, like talk down about people all the time. If we really want to save dogs, if we're really here to help dogs have good lives, we have to educate and better like help people. Like when people are in a better place, when they're more educated about it, dogs and all the animals around them live a better life. Like, it is not about pulling dogs to save dogs. It is about educating the people that put the dogs there in the first place and like helping them out. Why did the dog go? Because you can't afford medical expenses? Let's fucking help you. Like, I don't understand why some rescues do put their resources into that, but I'm like, we have to educate. If you want to save lives, educate the fucking public.
And I think that dog trainers and rescues have to like check their ego at the door. Like if we like really, I think ego is a huge reason why we're having so many issues.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's always easier said than done, right? And I think everyone here on this panel we've all been there. We've all had the ego. We've all had to deal with it. We've all had to realize. What I love about this group is we realize in order to help more dogs, we had to crush the ego.
Well,
and
I
we might even,
say,
especially Vinny, he struggles with it all the time.
Oh, mother.
His ego is just out of this world. No, I think I almost look at it the opposite way. I almost look at it like everybody on this episode has been around long enough to have the privilege, if that's the word, of having your ego crushed.
Yep, 100%.
You know,
100%. That's a great way to put it.
Right? It's like it's not a one and done. It's constant. But to piggyback off of Sam's point, not only do we have to help the general public, and rescues and dog trainers have to work together, but I think more dog trainers need to help more dog trainers like us need to help more rescues.
Well, I have something to say about this, right? So I have tried my hardest to help rescues, for free. And
I'm talking about in a different way, bro.
Yep, different way.
No, well, I'm talking about doing it our fucking self. So, I had a conversation, because look how much Sam does that is not just dog training, right? Like Sam's other big passion is obviously helping. I'm speaking to someone who follows Sam. Sam, you can speak for yourself, but Sam clearly cares about people, that are in the prison system, right? And like the work that she does, and that is incredible. And it's like, I had a really hard conversation with, a couple of my teammates today of like, hey, our Say It Once Rescue League that we started, like, why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we doing more? Oh, time? Okay, well, we can all sacrifice a couple hours a day, right? Like, let's get this fucking shit figured out and let's start doing more for dogs. If we're going to say that we got to help dogs, then you've got to fucking create the time, and John, you've done so much in rescue, and, we've always talked about that, and I don't know, just something else to think about.
I think that they have to, yes, doing it ourselves, but the rescues have to want the help. And from my experience, you can give all the free you want, but if not everyone's on board, it doesn't matter. And that goes for pet clients or rescue people, right?
I think free ends up hurting you.
Yeah,
because
free always hurts.
It's the fastest way for them to undervalue you.
100%.
There's actually studies, this is coming from my public health background because I have a master's. There's studies of...
Just saying.
She's his master's.
of people like getting vaccines in places, let's say Sudan or something, like places like whatever. If they gave them out for free, the family wouldn't take them. If they charge 5 cents, the family takes them. And so there's something in like paying. That's one part. I think it's also just finding rescues that you vibe with, and we all have such our own vibe. Like that's what's beautiful about, I feel stupid saying vibe so many times, but that's what's beautiful about every trainer showing up as themselves, because how you talk and mesh with someone is going to be so different than how John talks and meshes with someone, right? And
Totally.
So I feel like you just have to find the rescue. I have like 3 rescues right now that I love working with, and the new Corso that I have, he was going to get euthanized at the shelter. And this is what's tough. He was going to get euthanized at the shelter for defensive behavior and bites.
A Cane Corso?
Yeah. Okay. So this is where it's tricky because sometimes, like when the person who had fallen in love with this dog, Rodney, wanted me to pull it, I was like, they're euthanizing it for behavior. Like, I'm not going to spend time on this dog. Like, that's how strict I've become. And then I saw the videos and I was like, this is bullshit. That dog is going to be fine. But when I decided to pull it and foster it for this rescue, I said, give me 3 months. If I feel like it is an unsafe dog, we're going to make the same decision the shelter was going to euthanize. At least I gave it a chance. And because the shelter staff don't know what they're doing, and a lot of these people don't know dog training, and they spray the dogs down with hard water hose to get back of the kennel so that they can clean. And so after a few, like, what did a Corso do? After a while, it started going at the gate when they would approach, and like I've seen him go into flight. I've seen him be a little pushy, but I've gone so slow with this dog. He's going to be a great dog. Like, he's going to be amazing. So it's like, it's so tricky to know, but I think I just want to make the point of, if people are listening, for the trainers, I think taking the really hard dogs will make you learn so much about yourself, so much about dog training, so much about it. I never a moment will ever regret having Moose. He completely changed how I train. But you will save more dogs if you do not keep the hard dogs. If you have a balanced pack, you will be able to foster more, you will be able to rehab more, you will be able to save more, your time will not be split, and you'll be able to clock out at the end of the day, which is so important for your mental health and like your physical health. Also, you do not need a story like John's for the dog to need to be behavioral euthanized. It does not need to be a Goliath for that to be the right decision. So, as long as you feel like you've put in the work and the time and you've really, have tried everything, then, and maybe you haven't. If the dog is going to fucking bite all the time, maybe you don't have to try everything. I don't know.
If the dog is going to bite again, the dog should be euthanized. Like, if it's only going to be for 3 weeks, the dog's going to be good and then go back to its old lifestyle, the dog should be euthanized. Right? It doesn't sound nice, right? But if the dog is going to do damage one day, if there are kids in the home, if there's someone that is mentally unwell in the home, that dog's got to go. Like, it's not like, I love it. It's these dogs that are my favorite, right? Like, I have the most in common with these dogs, but it's a suffering lifestyle. That is a life of suffering, especially if the dog is of a working breed. People trying to turn working dogs into fur babies is not acceptable. I think that's the issue. Like, what are you doing with the Malinois if you've never had a lab? Like, what are you doing with the German Shepherd if you can't even keep a schedule for yourself, right? 100%. Like, these serious dogs need serious owners, people who are willing to put in the time. Because if you get a working dog and you don't give it what it needs, it's devastating to the dog. Affection alone will not fix any of this crap. Right.
Here's a devil's advocate for you that I want to hear all of your guys' thoughts on, because all three of you are very successful and popular on different social media platforms. John can get away with saying something like that. How is a new trainer that maybe doesn't have the rapport or doesn't have the skill set to carry a conversation with an owner supposed to be that frank with him?
You just got to do it, dude. Like that.
And you gotta find, like everything else in dog training, you gotta find a way to connect with them on like a human based level.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to sit down with you and go, hey, listen, you have a 2-year-old kid crawling in the fucking house, right? Or walking in the house. This is a really, really big problem. And what I don't want you to end up is on the news, right? Like, I don't want to get it to that point. Now, I also think for a young trainer that you need to know someone in your area who has a little bit more success in that, and be like, hey,
100%.
I'm going to pay you to go train this dog, and I'm going to watch. Is that okay? Yeah, that'd be fucking great. You know what I mean? And I think that is something that would be, that would be admirable.
I've had a few times trainers have done that, and I think it's amazing. I mean, I used to do that when I was learning, 100%. Mm-hmm. I used to do that. I mean, I'm still learning. I'm forever learning, hope to God. But I think that you can say anything in a soft way, and sometimes you have to connect. It's just like how...
Just like with dogs.
Yeah, it's like everyone has different methods. I know some trainers that, like, if the person refuses to use a crate, they're like, I'm not the trainer for you, and they'll leave. That's not how I do it. I'm like, I can see the crate's really hard for you. Let's try this, this, and this. And in a month, if they're still having the problem behavior, I'm like, you know what we haven't tried? A crate. Like, so there's a way that you can go soft. Now, if there's a child in the house and the child's safety is at loss or whatever, something like that, then I'll obviously get to that conversation sooner. But you can quickly win over anyone's trust if you say something, if you say it correctly, and really, people know when you're looking out for them.
I also think analogies, right? So if you're a young trainer and you need an analogy, we could do all the behavior rehabilitation for someone like Jeffrey Dahmer, but if we let Jeffrey Dahmer, is that behavior modification going to make a difference?
I don't know. Has anyone tried a clicker with him?
So here's the funny thing about Jeffrey Dahmer, okay? Because I used him in my playbook almost every day.
I did too as well.
Because some people are like, he's good 95% of the time. I said, you know what? You know what's really funny about that? So was Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
Like, he was normal 95% of the time. You know what he did the other 5%? He fucking ate people, right?
Yep.
So it's like, that's your dog. That's not normal. Right? Hey, Jeff, come over here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. 100%.
Well, and the question is an interesting one, because let's play that out. Let's say somebody did do behavioral rehab work with Jeffrey Dahmer, and let's say it worked. But does that in itself necessarily make it the right? What if it took longer than it should have? What if one Jeffrey Dahmer's worth of rehab, which was successful, could have saved 4 people? Other people.
Yeah, this comes back to Sam's point, and
right,
where she's correct of, hey, listen, we've got to help the dogs that are going to be the most have the high success rate and the quickest success rate.
Yeah, there's a certain efficiency equation to it, and I know that a lot of people, especially newer trainers, have a hard time accepting this. I mean, and for the reason that all 3 of you echoed in the beginning, you just want to be able to think you can save every single dog.
Yep.
But once you come to the conclusion that you can't, then we get comfortable saying, there's nothing wrong with you, like a newer trainer who reaches out for help, like you guys were saying about networking and helping them. There's nothing wrong with you saying, like, listen, I know it's shitty. I know that I sound direct and insensitive or whatever the word is, but it's a numbers game, because we already can't save them all. So how do we plug as many holes as we can with as few fingers as we can? Because there's more holes than there are fingers. And so, like, we have to kind of play that game. And it feels harsh to put math to it, but at the end of the day, it kind of is what it is.
Yeah. It's also what I just think my new thing that Brian Agnew said to me, if the door was left open, what is the worst case scenario? If the door was left open, Luca and Popcorn would stay in the house. If the door was left open, Lily, my pit, honestly, if I was not around, would maybe run out, but she wouldn't bite anyone. She might, and then after a second, she'd run back in the house. Like, she'd scare someone if I wasn't there. Like, but that's the worst case scenario. There's no bites involved, honestly. Like, there's not.
Here's devil's advocate number 2.
Yeah.
What about for a smaller dog? Because the worst case scenario is also different. If a Chihuahua is very hyper aggressive and has a shitty quality of life, but it can't really damage you well.
I helped a client through a behavioral euthanasia with a small dog. It was a meat trade rescue, and she had reached out to me, and that she had told another trainer, and the trainer hadn't even met the dog, and they said, euthanize this dog. And I was like, well, let's try it. Like, it was my last bite, which was a small dog, and it actually fucking hurt. And all my other bites have been pits, unfortunately, but this one, it hurt. And it redirected on me. It was going after her dad, redirected on me. It was going after members of the family. And my thought is, you're doing nothing right. You don't know how to walk this dog. The dog hasn't been in a crate. You're not doing place work. Like, we haven't done the basics. So let's start there and let's see what changes. And she nailed all those for a good 8 months. She could walk the dog on a loose leash. She could do all this. But when someone would enter her home, it would go nuts. When there were and then when it didn't want to do what she wanted it to ask, like simple things, it'd come after her. And finally I just go, you put so much work into this dog. It was about a year after I first met her. You put so much work into a dog. I feel like you can successfully say you've tried everything. This dog has bit at least 30 times, at least.
Wow.
Yep.
And think about how many times it's marked as successful. If this was a big dog, this would be dangerous. And this dog is not having a good quality of life. Mm-hmm. And so we thought about the dog's quality of life, and she decided to euthanize it.
I had a client, I lost the client because I recommended euthanasia. We went through a few training sessions. They weren't doing the work. and it was a small dog that they were picking up and holding, and it's a matter of time before it gets his girlfriend's face. Just a matter of time, right? And you try to tell people the truth, they just don't want to hear it sometimes. They're not ready for it.
I think a happy medium is kind of like, maybe I'm not at that place yet where I feel comfortable saying, you know, without meeting the dog, working with the dog, assessing the dog, to say those things, right?
100%.
And one thing that we had talked about with Michael Ellis and Denise Fenzi was just saying, you know, the dog at least deserves to be ran through foundational protocols.
Yes.
You know? And then we can see, okay, what changes. Like, you can't say someone's crazy till you teach them basic fundamental skills and then reassess. You know what I mean? Someone could be stressed. There could be a lot of shit in the environment. Like, there could be, obviously, we know that as dog trainers, but I think it's so easy to maybe villainize an aggressive dog, and the way clients have a tendency of just like, or not clients, just humans in general. We lose trust over things that we can't control or we can't predict. Right. And as trainers, we have the ability to think 2 to 3 steps ahead where the average dog client can't. Right. And the only way they really get to develop trust with trust with their dog is going through those foundational protocols. And I've seen situations where someone who couldn't even be in the same room with their dog, after teaching fundamental foundational protocols, they realize, oh, I see how we weren't being clear with each other. And over 3, 4, 5 months, they now trust the dog again. And that lack of insecurity and tension helps the relationship. And now that dog's still alive. But I also have seen it on the other end where they do everything right, and it's still, this dog is still unpredictable. And you cannot be 2 or 3 steps ahead of that dog. And I will tell you this, Sam, I did get to meet Moose that day and he was, I was like, why the fuck is this dog here? I played with the dog. I played tug of war. I pet on him. He was not popping off at dogs. Like, she did a hell of a job with that dog. So, but again, how we perceive a dog, like as a dog trainer, when I found out that you were thinking of putting him in, I was like, really, that nice, sweet old dog, you know? So it's interesting because if you can't trust it, that does something emotionally to a person that is, it's not there's an instinct there that says I can't trust this, and I think that's really to be respected.
Well, I think that was the hard part too, is like people, you know, I took him to an Oregon Tails workshop, and Brianna gave me the very sweet compliment of being like, we knew how hard that dog was and you made it look really good. And like, that was the hard part, is like, then when I was like, how am I even going to tell people? Like, how am I even going to tell, you know, like, I don't know. So, but that doesn't matter. Like, all of that does not matter. Like, it doesn't, the well-being of the dog and the safety of everyone around. Because if I wasn't on, like, when he did go, it was just so big and so dangerous, you know, and he only came back and muzzle punched me once, and thank God he had his muzzle on, like, you know, like, it was just, I had a dog. This is where it's so tricky, but everything in dog training is not black and white, because I had this huge dog that was starting to go, when they would like move or something on the couch, he'd snap at them, and they were expecting a baby. Well, guess what? We got him off the couch. We taught loose leash walking, and we did play super basic. I had the dog as board and trained, never snapped at them again, because it just wasn't allowed on the couch in the first place. Right. And every time that the baby was crawling and moving, they put the dog in the crate. Like, and then when the kid got out of, and then when and it wasn't actually that big of a deal. Like, he would have been out, it wasn't like he was going to go for it. If the kid was crawling all over the dog, which too many people allow, he would have had a limitation of how long he could handle that for. And so the parents were responsible, and they put the dog in the crate when the kid was going through the crawling and the falling over stage. And he sends me photos. I did a board and train with this dog 6 years ago. He still sends me photos of him off leash on the beach together, like surfing. Like,
that is a beautiful thing of it going right. And just a couple months ago, I get I have an evaluation with your textbook golden retriever snaps at the 2-year-old. Okay. And on the phone, they're freaking out. I think we have to put the dog down. My parents want us to put the dog down, blah, 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 blah. Going through the whole story, as you mentioned, the kid is allowed to step on them and poke them and do all this stuff. And I said, and the kids too, mind you. So the dog's been dealing with this for 2 years. And the one time the dog goes, just like mouths him, doesn't even bite him. They freak out and literally are about to say euthanasia. So that's a dog trainer's worst fear, right? And that's why we believe in training. Be like, no, if you just had basic education, if we could save so many dogs. That obviously that's an extreme of a really light case, but imagine if that would have followed through.
There are a lot of cases like this.
Yeah, but imagine if that would have followed through and that golden retriever did a basic obedience program and boom, dog is happy and the kid's 4 years old, or not? No, that's a bad timeline, but he's still alive, right?
Your kid and move it. This is where I feel like I can say this because I raised a kid around tons of dogs, and I never let her once climb all over a dog.
100%. But it's something so
Pick up the
simple
dog,
like this.
Get the kid and move them.
Yeah, something so simple like just teaching them how to act around dogs. That saves dogs' lives, right? So going back to like that education, just really, really simple education to help people. It's important.
I want to delineate though, you guys. I know that that's kind of the point that you're both making, but I want to delineate that this is what Denise checked me on last time was we're not talking about the dogs that made a mistake or an owner that doesn't know any better. We're talking about dogs that have behavioral issues that may very well be better off getting euthanized. And I noticed we've all been talking a lot about aggression, and then I'll let you go, John, sorry. There are also other dogs out there that struggle for different reasons, very high levels of anxiety and what have you. So, just for people listening, totally, we all understand that there are those circumstances out there. I had a client personally or not my client, but my client is this pet store. And they had a golden puppy returned, no joke, like 16 weeks old, because it was quote unquote aggressive. And they wanted me to, I'm serious, they wanted me to come to the store and evaluate this dog. And I was like, are you fucking, sure, okay. And I go there and it was the sweetest dog in the world because duh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get it. But really serious dogs that genuinely struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, keep that in perspective. Yeah.
That's like those are like all the only clients I really get. I mean, I've been getting some puppies lately, and here's the thing: you were saying something earlier, and no dog is worth your mental well-being.
Bingo.
Right. I think that is something hard for all of us to get on board with. But once you understand that, like, they could really take you down a dark road. And the other thing I want to bring up with these behavior cases, whether fear, anxiety,
put the mic near your face.
Sorry, whether it's fear or anxiety, or aggression, the difference between like a board and train and in-home sessions, right? I think that a board and train for behavior can be very helpful, but if the client doesn't follow through, it's pointless, right? And I think that we need to do a better job holding our clients accountable and taking the time to teach the e-collar a little better if we're using it.
So one quick thing, because I mean, realistically, if the client doesn't follow through, it's useless. Whether it's a board and train group class,
regardless,
I think the only difference is that when you do one-on-one, or if you do board and train with a lot of one-on-one after, you get to see how the human interacts with the dog. The big thing for me that really kind of is annoying is that we see a lot of and I'm guilty of this too. So I mean, it's annoying for me too. But we see a lot of obedience being taught and all this and all this stuff of which is great. Don't get me wrong.
What do you mean? What do you mean obedience? For aggression?
No. I'll get to
just like on social media. You mean?
Yeah, just on social media. Just hey, this is important. This is the importance. This is the importance. And then we all a lot of us say, oh, it's how you live with the dog's important, but what the fuck does that actually mean, right? And I think we got to talk a little bit more about what does that mean and what does that look like. A dog doesn't perceive space the way that we perceive space, and the whole 9 yards, go across the list. But I think that is the benefit of when you go into the lion's den and see exactly how this dog behaves in their house with that human, how they behave with their dog. I do think that does make a huge difference. Whether you train the dog there or not, you have to see how they behave in their own home.
Sometimes you'll miss something as simple as wait, you're feeding like that? I guess we never talked about feeding because you're doing leash work or whatever. I think you can talk about it, but I'm working with a corgi right now that has pretty intense resource guarding, and I always start with clients at my home because it's convenient for me, and then also because I want to see how into it they are.
Yeah. Yeah. You want them to buy in.
If you don't want to drive 20 minutes to me, you're not the client for me. Like if
Yeah.
you don't want to start a session here in a neutral space, you're not the client for me. Like, and now I can be nitpicky with that stuff. But then it was our third session. So I went there today and I just made sure I saw how the setup was, how she was feeding, how she was recalling the dog off things when it started to guard, and it looked beautiful. But I wouldn't know that unless I went to the house. Like, of course, home sessions are so important, especially if you're doing boredom trains. Like I can't say it's not going to be successful, but it's really important that you're at the house.
Yeah. If we can, real quick, guys, we're going to go and just break for a commercial real quick, and we're going to come right back. We'll see you guys soon.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to Dog Trainers Podcast. You know what's a great way to support this podcast? By becoming a sponsor today. With sponsoring the podcast, you'll be helping us make this show the best it can be, and so much more. From hosting more local events, traveling throughout the country, and connecting with trainers from around the world, ultimately getting you, the listener, more of the content that you love. For more information, please contact us at dogtrainerspodcast@gmail.com or visit our Instagram page at dogtrainerspodcast. Thank you guys, and now back to the show.
All right, guys, thanks again so much for listening. Now, this is episode 2, or rather part 2 of Behavioral Euthanasia. We've got John Gotta, Vinnie Somma, and Samantha Johnson. We thank you guys again, and let's dive right back into it. So, one of the things that we had talked about previously before John was searching on his phone.
Dude,
was,
between John and Sam,
difference-
I'm telling you what. You guys need look at Sam looking straight down at her phone. Look at me, laser focused, Mariano. I haven't taken my fucking eyes off you the entire day.
Right?
Okay.
I respect
ADHD,
I respect how easy you are to interview. I really do. Samantha,
Fucking midnight here.
You see how there's no accountability from John blaming us for his ADHD?
Okay, that's a lie because in this conversation, Vinny sent me a message. So
While she was on her phone, I had to set the tone.
sure,
Yeah.
and then John just just did a story. So before you guys you boys are just doing the same thing. Okay.
the boys are mean. Okay, so the question that I really want to get into more with you guys, we touched on it briefly, was how difficult it can be for people in the sport training world who raise the perfect puppy that comes from pedigree, comes from lineage they understand, and then train the dog to do a very specific set of things. But otherwise, sport dogs, I'm sure we all know, live a different kind of life than most pet dogs. A lot of crate time, etc. Their criticisms sometimes of how pet dog trainers operate.
Yeah, which kind of fucking pisses me right off. Now I'm going to start this one. Because I have the utmost respect for what they do, right? What they could do is absolutely incredible. And I talked with Brianna, Sam knows Brianna from Pack Leader Help, and we've all seen really good dogs. And at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck what your dog can do if you can't take them around out in public. If you can't bring them over to my house and just hang out, then that's a problem to me, right? It's like I want to be able to take my dogs with kids to a hospital. I want to be able to take my dogs to a public park to go hang out with my buddies, to do whatever. And so it's not just about teaching a dog a task. It's about teaching a dog how to live. And for me, that's what I want to fucking teach. That's what I want to focus on. And that's what my clients need and want to focus on.
Yeah, I think, my thought is who cares? But I feel this way so deeply about anyone who criticizes me. I'm like, okay, you should do it your way then. That sounds great. My thought is I have no idea this realm of bite work and sports and all this. I know a little bit. I've dived into it a little bit. And why I mean little bit, J-Jack is play stuff what I'm talking about. I can't have an opinion on the stuff that John does because I've never done it before. And so my thought is if someone wants to just focus on that all the time, that's great. But clients Brianna and I just said this in our live. I was like, if you love agility, if you want to do agility and tricks and all that, I'm not the trainer for you. I love it. I think there's a place for it. I'm not the trainer for you. I can teach you urban agility on your walk. I can teach you that. But if you want a class where you're doing that, that's not my thing. My goal with my dogs, I want to be able to go anywhere with my dogs. I want them to be able to run errands with me. I want to be able to have guests in my home. and I want to be able to go off leash places and hikes. That's my goal. If that's your goal, I'm a great trainer for you. You know, like, so it's, again, like, it's all finding our vibe. Like, if a sports person has criticism on my training, I don't care.
It was like
Denise Fenzi said something that was pretty cool. She said that it shouldn't be called dog training. It should be called like learning how to live with a dog, right? And I think we kind of alluded to that earlier. John, you do sport dog training. Talk to us a little bit about that. What your opinions on that are?
I think that all of you should get into it at some point, at least for a short duration.
I'll watch you.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I'll tell you, it makes me a better trainer to help pet clients. That's the big deal. So you're trying to explain things to people, and a lot of pet people don't have a clear understanding of what's actually happening. So just for example, a lot of people, they don't know why they're struggling with the dog park or why they're struggling with dogs on walks, right? And the reality is I always use bite work as an analogy. So basically, what does frustration do in a dog that we're trying to get to bite do? Like, what does frustration do? What does it do? Do you know? Builds drive. Frustration builds drive, right? So people take their dogs to dog parks, and the dog has all this fun, and then an incident happens, right? And what happens from there? The people have PTSD, and then every time they see a dog, they avoid the issue. Well, that turns into frustration for the dog, and they're wondering why it's getting worse and worse and worse. And pet people are telling people to avoid the problem, avoid. And I think that you need to understand how things develop, and a lot of pet people, pet trainers, don't understand how it becomes that way.
Right. I just think it's, at some point there is a lifestyle difference that you can kind
Originally, I think we were talking about high drive genetic dogs and how that correlates to euthanasia.
I just think,
Yeah.
I think to bring it back to behavioral euthanasia, I think the thing is that in America, people are not, from when I was in France, I was just so thrilled by what I saw in pet ownership. Their expectation is extremely high. They take their dogs everywhere with them. I only saw 2 German Shepherds while I was there and 1 pit. And I'm not saying this breed is bad. I have a pit bull tattooed to my arm. But the 2 people who had the German Shepherds, they were the only e-collars I saw the entire time. Their dogs were wearing backpacks, and they were doing urban agility as they were walking. They took that as an extreme responsibility. Here, people get them because they're cute, because they met one that was good, and because we overdid this thing that pit bulls are just like every other dog. They're not. And again, I say this with love. I have one tattooed to my arm. Do not get a pit bull and think that it's going to be like your Labradoodle, because it's not, they don't have lockjaw, but they are tenacious, and they've been bred to be tenacious. And when I hear stories of 2 pits mauling kids to death and rescuers trying to save those pits, it's absolutely insane. Pits are not like any other dog. Corsos are not like any other dog. Again, I have 2 of them, but I know what the fuck I'm doing. And I'm not trying to cuddle them on my couch all the time with me. So it's like we overcorrected by trying to make pit bulls look good. And now everyone and their grandma has one, and they shouldn't. Everyone and their grandma has a fucking German Shepherd. Too many people are getting Malinois. Too many people are getting Corsos. It's like, no, go get the Beagle. Go get the Golden Doodle, actually. I mean, maybe not Golden Doodle, but like, go get the Golden Retriever, actually. Like, you have no right getting this dog. And unless, in what I think John is trying to say is, if you have a dog that has a high drive that was bred to do something, know that it was bred to do that. The amount of fucking hurting dogs I get in my clients.
With aggression.
I had one today and I go, why did you get this dog? Like, tell me about it. Like, why did you choose this breed? I thought they're cute. And I was like, okay, let's get to work. What? And so dogs are getting set up to fail because we're being so stupid in how we're choosing the breed.
So from the jump, then, I think that segues perfectly into another question. Was Brent and I have had this conversation on the podcast before, where it's important for trainers, pet dog trainers who are out there dealing with clients, learn your breeds and make sure that you're capable of having these conversations with people.
Now,
right, breed matters because genetics matter.
Yep.
Right.
I will give Vinny a point on this. There are a lot of sport trainers that deal with one breed, a Malinois, or only a German Shepherd. So their opinions on that breed, yes, they're excellent, right, on that breed. But when it comes to pet stuff, you are 100% right. But trainers like me, like trainers that that are dealing with all kinds of different breeds and breed types, like dogs that aren't meant to do bite work, doing bite work with those dogs, right? I think that they have a little bit more to offer the pet world than you give them credit for.
Well, and mind you, when we say sport dog world, we don't mean just bite work. I think people who do like competition frisbee and stuff work with a bunch of different breeds.
It's all drive channeling, man.
But so my question then, you guys, was we were talking about the difficulty of people who buy a dog regardless of what it's genetically built to do, and then they wonder why it struggles. And then when the trainer comes along and has to have this conversation, sometimes they see you as the bad guy. So I wanted to pivot that a little bit from the owner who gets the dog that maybe they shouldn't have gotten to rescues that take on dogs that maybe they aren't equipped to handle. And there are lots of trainers out there that we talked about in the beginning of the show who want to help. But there's a significant portion of rescues that struggle with dogs all the time that they cannot keep in a home, that are also not willing to allow a trainer to try to help if this trainer uses tools or punishers of any
sort. You can't help
sort.
someone that doesn't want help. It's as simple as that. You're going to drive yourself crazy. I don't follow up with any clients unless they reach out to me. I'm not going to do more work than them than they're ready to do for themselves. And I feel the same way about rescues. And if the rescues want to euthanize those dogs because they don't want me to teach them crate or an e-collar, then euthanize the dogs. There's nothing I can do about it. So why would I waste my energy and time stressing over it?
True.
And can I get your guys' thoughts then on, we were talking before we started recording, how fascinating it is, this thought process people have that are anti-tool but pro-euthanasia, like death before discomfort type deal.
Life is discomfort. Growth is discomfort. Your dog is never going to get better if you don't put it a little bit stressed out. Not crazy stressed out, but a little bit stressed out.
Stress and the ability to overcome stress is the most important thing that you could teach a dog, right?
Yep.
It's the most important thing that you could teach a child.
Yep.
And John and I talked before about like how we use sports or our past of sports and dog training, right? It's like, but that created the man that I am and the man that he is today, and that goes back to giving your dog a fucking task that he should actually be bred for, but also not just stopping at the first sign of like, okay, that was hard. That was it was a little difficult, so let's just back away from it. It's like, Jesus, these dogs are fucking soft. You know what I mean?
You raise a dog to be a big softy.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to get. Like it's like the dog training world is a microcosm of what's happening in the real world. People are overly soft on their kids, and now they're sensitive. And then you see with dogs, they're overly soft with dogs. And I believe that softness is why, like, we're helping our dogs too much.
I disagree with that statement.
Why?
Because I think there's a difference of being gentle and pushing than being soft, and what's detrimental. For me, I'm a gentle parent. I will never lay a hand on my child. I would never
That doesn't have anything to do just with what we're talking about with dogs being soft. It doesn't have.
What do you mean about being too soft on?
By not pushing them hard enough, by not saying, hey, you know what, that right there, it is scary, but you can overcome that stress. By not letting them
figure it out.
It has nothing to do with physical touch ever.
No, yeah,
ever.
Not at all.
It has everything to do with a mental. I don't want to say that in a negative way, but. What's a better word for me to say other than mental handicap, Mariano?
The way that Blake Rodriguez described it was setting up opportunity and space for your dog to fail safely.
Yeah.
Making it enough of a
I
challenge for the
agree.
dog to win and lose.
I think I unnecessarily, and I'm sorry, got triggered when you said it's what's happening in the outside world of like being too soft on kids. And because I don't know what you mean by that, and that's a separate conversation that you and I can have. But yeah. I think for me, like, I 100% agree with the other statements of what you guys are saying with your dogs. The moment that a dog gets stressed out and the owners are like, oh no, stop. I'm like, how are we going to teach it to walk on? The amount of dogs that just don't get comfortable with leash pressure. And so the people throw a harness on it because they don't want their dog to get uncomfortable with leash pressure. And then those dogs go to the shelter and you're walking it out and it's alligator rolling and people have a feeling that something traumatic happened. I'm like, no, or it just never felt the sensation before and we have to work them through it.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. I had this pit bull, Harley, amazing dog, right? And it's not like, I'm not talking about hitting a dog or anything. I'm saying I put a box in front of the dog. All the puzzle was just to get in the box, and the dog had an OCD tendency to spin in circles, so it got frustrated because it didn't know what to do because its owners always coddled it through every situation. Like here, like I'll use Boof as an example. I never hit Boof, right? I've never punished him. Like I don't let anyone punish my dog, right? I even got mad at Brent.
Dude, for
pushed him off.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
Seriously, I don't let people touch my dogs, right? Like at all. But I do set up puzzles that he has to figure out. He has to work through pressure, always. If he can't work through pressures, he's not going to work as a working dog. Like even as pets, if they don't learn how to work through pressure, it's a hard life, right? When shit hits the fan, right? It's about conditioning the dog to be able to work through it. You talk about the leash pressure, teaching them to lean into that pressure. It's a huge thing. Huge.
And mind you, we're talking about two different worlds here, right? He's raising a police dog, and we're typically raising pets, right? So I think the idea is we need to be able to push in a way to prepare the dog for whatever lifestyle it's going to be living.
Yeah, well,
right?
you guys are also just kind of delineating the difference between stress and a punisher that's been applied by someone.
Yes.
That's what a correction ultimately is, versus a dog just undergoing stress because the dog is perceiving this to be stressful.
There's a balloon, and instead of people helping their dog feel good about the balloon, they take away balloons. You know,
right?
Like
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. They're too soft on their.
Can you put the mic on him?
Dealing with the issue, right?
Microphone, please, John. Yeah.
Oh, they avoid the issue. They take away the balloons. That's being too soft on your dog.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not that we want to like force the dog to be next to the balloon, but we counter condition so the balloon's not a big deal. We use the dog's drive and play fetch or tug of war when that balloon's in the area.
I agree with that to an extent. I think that one thing we also touched on in the beginning was that dog training in and of itself, like pet obedience training, sits, downs, heel, this, that, where it really serves its function in the pet dog world is as a data point. You work X many dogs and you sort of collect an average of like, okay, if your dog is reasonably genetically stable, it should be able to perform these sets of tasks with a range of stress that's from here to here. If the dog stresses so much more than the average to do something as simple as walking on leash with another dog walking across the street, then we have to start wondering why this dog is such an outlier. Is it genetic? Was it an upbringing? Is it something that's fixable regardless of where it came from? So if the function of obedience is to establish these baselines that as trainers, I think it was Vinnie that said in the beginning, the more dogs you train, the more accurate you become because you just have more data. Then you have to start making a judgment calls there. Maybe does this dog really need to be near balloons? Now, mind you, if it's something that's so common that this dog is going to encounter this, like just being able to walk past a car as it drives down the street, that's important to have to work through. But if a dog stresses over something that it doesn't necessarily need to be subject to, then sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do think avoiding something is an appropriate answer.
Yeah, maybe, but then you're putting him in 7th grade when he should have been in 3rd. So find 3rd grade stress and work him through the stages of it, right? But avoiding stress altogether. And I understand your point of like, all right, just remove the balloon because, who really needs a fucking balloon? But we're talking about stress, right? Like at one point or another, and stress is contagious, right? It's going to go from one thing to the next to the next. So if we can teach this dog to overcome a certain certain level or grade of stress, it's going to be easier the next time and easier the next time. And sometimes it's not that fucking hard, right? We do a chair test. I might have talked to you guys before about this, but we'll take a living room chair, pull it out in the middle of the room, and see how many dogs can jump on the chair, right? And you watch how I'm not just picking out a number, but I'm going to say 9 out of 10 dogs can't jump on the fucking chair, right? Because mentally they're stuck. They're like, physically I can't. I'm telling myself I can't do this. Now, if I have a fucking human being and I'm saying, hey, I need you to go do a simple task, and they're like, nah, I can't do that, they're gonna fail, right? Like in their life, they're gonna really struggle because no one really set them up for stress, and that is the benefit of sports, right? That's why for children I stress sports. Not that I have fucking kids, and God, let's not come back here 9 months later. But that's the importance of putting your dog in a sport, right? But sport does not mean you have to go every Saturday XYZ. You can do sports in your fucking house.
No, I understand that, and I think that you and I are kind of making two different points, because I don't disagree with any of that. So certainly, I think that stress, the tolerance, the ability to overcome stress and function through it, is a learnable, coachable skill. I guess I played sports growing up, but my big thing was
Dance.
when I was in the Air Force. So
Dance,
yeah, interpretive dance. Yeah, you guys want to see my? So when I was in the military, that was kind of the point of boot camp, of basic training. I used to think, like, how weird is this? And I used to get annoyed with it. Like what exactly is the purpose of this? I just feel like, it wasn't overwhelmed. It was just like, why are you yelling at me just to yell at me? Like it upsets me because I don't understand. And then the function of it, once I graduated from that and I went to tech school and I saw one of my MTIs, and now that you're no longer he can just talk to you like a normal person. They just make it a point to be like, there's that simplification of there's stress and then there's information, and some people can do two at once and some people can't. And we need to figure out who's good at what so that we can start making judgments and so on. So I get that learning to overcome stress is important and is doable. My point was, on the flip side of that, how many dog trainers do you guys see online who do things that are just unnecessarily stressful, like somebody reaching into the dog's food bowl, or you should sit your dog right next to that gate where that dog's barking at them and just make them wait until they calm down, and it may take, and I just find that to be dumb and unnecessary too, and for that reason dumb. And my personal example was my dog Simba, who, he was a pity. He had huge dog reactivity. He, when I first got him, had bitten me, had bitten my ex-girlfriend, who was also who still is also a dog trainer. And mind you, over the course of his life, he got way better as well. And he got to the point to where he would be good around other dogs. I could have him off leash in a daycare full of dogs at my house, and he wouldn't do anything, but he hated it. And so I wouldn't make him do it. That's my point, is there should be a limit. If the dog just doesn't want it, then just don't, within reason.
Well, stress needs an end goal. Like stress has to have an objective. You can't just, hitting pots and pans in your house is not going to make your dog more confident.
Yeah.
Right. But when the stress shuts off, when the objective is completed, that should be the purpose of stress.
Agreed, 100%. And I think that's something that J-Jack told us was, I know somebody was talking about J-Jack before. I think it was
I did.
Samantha. And Vinny's touching on it, not necessarily from J-Jack, is it's important. Something that most young or new dog trainers don't have is an end goal, be it in developing a dog's tolerance to stress, or building obedience commands, or deciding whether or not this dog should be euthanized. In any circumstance, what people should have that they often don't, and whenever I mentor trainers, what I talk to them about first is, what's the objective here? You're trying to get this dog to do what? Okay, why? And then they sit there like, and I'm like, why the fuck are you trying to make this dog do this?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Or like, I think I want another dog. Why? And when people really have to verbalize what their goals are, then they have the opportunity to reassess.
Yeah. I think with the stress, if your dog, just going back to the balloon, I don't know why. Oh, Luca was afraid of balloons when he first came to the house, and we had balloons because it was Olivia's birthday. If your dog is afraid of inanimate objects, I'm sorry, that's silly, and it's a great opportunity for you to work through leash work stress with your dog. Like if it's something that is as simple, and that doesn't mean that you throw balloons all over its face. It means you put a balloon on the living room floor and you work around it, and then maybe you pick up the balloon and you allow them to be in the same room. But I'm not throwing balloons at my dog and expecting them to be okay with it. So there's common sense, I think, in this realm. But I think to your also point is, it's also knowing your dog's personality. You said that your dog didn't like being in the yard. That to me is like, if it's knowing who your dog is. And the way I used to always describe Lily, my pit, is like, she's a girl who wants to read in the corner at the library. She does not want to go to the party. So at a certain point, I'm going to go put her in her crate in a different room because she doesn't want to be here. And that's me respecting her and valuing her and understanding what her threshold is, so that she continued to make good decisions, that she can continue to trust me as someone who will only put her in situations that are good for her. So it's like,
the only piece of pushback I have for that, sorry, Vinny, then I'll let you go, is common sense isn't always so common. And that's where we, as more experienced trainers, need to make sure that we explain that stuff down to other trainers. And in fact, my favorite thing about Vinny and Tom Davis is both of you guys, I've noticed, both of your content is huge. And I've noticed that, at least in my opinion, part of the reason why is both of you don't overlook very simple points.
Yeah.
Like I see so many videos from you or Tom that I'm like, that I watch it and I'm like, man, I'm surprised that this got that much engagement just because it's so obvious.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, well, maybe it's obvious to me, but shit,
So-
maybe I should be making more simple content.
Yeah, and so 2 quick points. One, I want to go back to the why question. And dog trainers, when you give advice, you need to ask yourself why you are giving that advice. Do not just fucking spew shit out of your mouth because you heard it online. You need to understand the why this is going to help this person. And if you can't answer it, perfect. And when you do give advice to a client, it's not they're sitting there nodding their head. You can go, why would I say that to you? And then you answer your own question so they understand it. You know what I mean? Because it's not just important that they understand what to do, because what to do doesn't really matter if you don't understand why you need to be doing it. Like, why is this fucking important to my life? So there's that.
What was
You
your
said there was a second point?
I don't know. I'm fucking sweating my ass off in this house right now. So
Well, I wanted to tie this back into that episode that we did with Michael Ellis and Denise Fenzi, because when I asked them, what are the 2 biggest characteristics where if they were high, or like if they were wrong, you would consider potentially opening the door to behavioral euthanasia. And one of them, they said resource guarding and very low thresholds to stress. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's very, very important because, obviously I think this talk about how do we temper dogs, how do we make them, how do we inoculate them to stress little by little, get them better and better and stronger. I think that's going to be also helpful as we're laying down that foundational work with the dogs. We can't just train dogs in a vacuum. We can't just train dogs on a leash. We can't just train dogs in the quiet home setting. We're going to have to push these boundaries to actually see what makes those dogs ticks, to be able to see, are you safe? Are you going to transfer? Like, what's going to happen with this dog? And I think that is like when we're this discussion about stressors and how to work through those stresses is so important for a young dog trainer to really understand. Like, make sure you do your best when it comes to that.
Make sure you gauge the dog's current ability to deal with stress, and then the point of obedience and all the other forms of training, crate management, all that stuff is to systematically build their ability to handle stress more and more. That's why dog trainers start simple and then add distractions over time. Yeah, because it gets more stressful.
I compare to kids a lot because I think people will talk about dogs like they're babies and whatever else. And I don't remember what trainer it was, but I saw him do a thing of like, great, treat your dog like your baby, give them boundaries, hold them accountable to their behavior. Like, do that then. Like, but the example I always give if a dog is really nervous or stressed out or whatever it is like, if a kid was afraid of swimming, you would not be like, okay, we never have to be around water. It is an important life skill for everyone to know is how to swim. Hopefully we would not also pick up our kid and throw them in the pool and say good luck. Like, that would be traumatizing.
Natural selection.
Story of my life.
Let God sort them out.
It's always an interesting to say about that example. So, and then the other thing is that, the example I always give is like, I had to do this with my niece once because my daughter is a Mowgli of a child. She's crazy brave. She's barefoot climbing in trees all the time. And then I have a niece who is a very good listener, would sit down and she's sweet, but she's very timid. And to your point of sports, she's gotten into dance and her confidence has skyrocketed. And she's like crazy into like hip hop and really good at it at a young age. But anyway, so my sister and I were training for a triathlon. We were like in this open water and she would not go in because she couldn't see through it and it wasn't a pool. And all the other kids are having fun, having a good time. And so I just turned to her and I go, we're going to get to our knees. I don't care how long it's going to take. I'm going to be here. We're going to hold hands and we're going to get to your knees. And we got to her knees and I remember seeing her, and this is the same thing I would do exactly with a dog. Like, decide what my term is, but it's their time. However long it takes them is totally up to them with whatever goal I have put in place. Like, and give as many breaks as needed. We got to her knees and she looked up at me with this big grin on her face. And I was like, let's get to our booties, like, let's get to your booty. And we got there and then she looked at me with this big grin on her face. And I was like, let's go underwater. And she ended up having the best day in her and
That's awesome.
She was so confident in herself because she overcame something she was afraid of. And I use that example all the time because I went slow. It was on her terms, but her confidence skyrocketed. And unless we help our dogs overcome things that they're afraid of, they're going to be fearful little poops.
And you have no idea how much one event like that can make or break a child or make or break a dog.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I think the funny thing is, as I hear you guys talk about this, all three of you, John, Vinnie, Samantha, like all three of you guys in particular, you guys, when I hear other content that you make online, the reason why I'm not surprised that story worked out so well, the reason why I'm not surprised you all understand the value of that is because what I often say is trainers that are good understand the teaching process, trainers that are really good understand the learning process. And you guys understand gradually, systematically, somebody who knows less about children could be like, well, let's go here and then here, and just kind of set these like arbitrary like lines along the way. You had the wherewithal and the patience and all the stuff required to let her do it on her time and wait for signals like her giving you strong eye contact that she was confident and ready to move on to the next thing. So, that's honestly one of my favorite things about all three of your guys' content is you consider the learner, the dog, and how they're perceiving what you're teaching more so than just the technical side of teaching things in a kind of a mundane order. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up here. That's Season 2, Episode 17, Behavioral Euthanasia Part 2 with John Gotta, Vinnie Somma, and, of course, Miss Samantha Johnson. We thank you guys again so much for listening. Thank you to John, Vinnie, and Samantha for being on with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a blast. And we thank you listeners so much, you guys. We shot this episode toward the end of 2022. You're listening to this beginning of 2023. We hope you had a fantastic new year. We love you guys. We're looking forward to this year with you guys. And with that, over to you, man.
Yep. Again, we just want to thank our friends John Gotta, Vinnie Somma, and Samantha Johnson for being on this episode. We had a couple technical difficulties at the end of this episode, so we are recording this outro right at the end. But thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you guys in episode 18. We got some special guests coming up, so hope you guys enjoy. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
We really hope that you enjoyed this episode and can't wait to be back with you guys. Be sure to follow us at Dog Trainers Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And don't forget to punch the hell out of that subscribe button and leave us a review.
Remember, guys, this is your podcast. You're the best listeners in the world, and we'll see you next time.